One of the fathers of the first gay couple in Canada to legally co-adopt a child has written a book about the experience. Peterborough's David McKinstry fought for years to adopt a child. He even won his fight in court, but his family's fight with homophobia in the community lasted much longer. His groundbreaking story has been profiled many times, including in a photo essay from the National Film Board. And today, he was on Metro Morning with guest host Michael Serapio, talking about his new book, Rebel Dad.
I had people, licensed social workers, asking me if I was, you want to adopt a little boy? Are you trying to home grow your own play toy? Those were some of the questions that we had that we encountered. And again, the indignity of those questions at a time when there were so many children needing homes.
And the homophobia embedded in that question.
Oh.
This idea that if you're gay, you're necessarily a pedophile, which is far from true.
Well, it's not. As we all know, 97% of pedophiles are heterosexual men who know their victims. So it was crude comments to make back then. I went to India in 1998 to meet up with the 18 approved orphanages in Delhi that Canada would allow adoptions to occur with. And on the 18th orphanage that I met, Mohini Raghunath, who was the orphanage director, and she looked into my eyes after an hour and she said, "Go home, wait for my call, and I will find you a son." And 3 months later, to the day, she called me and she said, "We have a little boy. He was found clutching the corpse of his mother in a back alley. If you want him, he's yours." And she didn't have to ask twice. We got a call from the Children's Wish Foundation one Friday afternoon in August of 1998 asking if we had a room. And we had just had a cancellation that morning, and they said, "We have a woman at the airport. The American authorities will not allow her to fly over American airspace because she has AIDS." And they were trying to send her for one last holiday to Disneyland with her 4-year-old son. So we said, "Send her up. She can have the room." So she arrived, and that evening we're sitting around the table. There must have been 25 people, many of them having been there before, saying, "How's the adoption with Nicholas going?" And she later asked me, "So you're adopting from India. Aren't you afraid of leprosy or AIDS?" And I said, "Not really. He might as well have our blood in his veins." And the next morning, over coffee, she grabbed my arm and she said, "I wasn't able to sleep last night. I now know why God didn't let me get on that airplane. I was meant to come here and ask you and Michael to adopt my son and make him a little brother to your boy in India. Will you take my son?" And she didn't have to ask twice. When you put that child in your arms, it doesn't matter by what womb it was born. That child is your child.
His two sons are now in their 20s, and he is hoping his book will help encourage others to consider adoption.
And we're speaking with the first openly gay Canadian man who is legally able to adopt internationally. The battle was trailblazing, and it's all told in his new book, Rebel Dad, triumphing over bureaucracy to adopt 2 orphan boys born worlds apart. And the author, David McKinstry, joins us now along with one of his adopted sons. Colwyn, welcome.
Thank you.
You always, David, wanted to be a dad. That was one thing that you were very sure about throughout your life. I want to be a father. Did you anticipate how difficult that would be?
Never. The journey, it was like climbing a mountain. I have no idea what motivated me to climb that mountain, but it ended with us having 2 sons. It probably started with me in university fathering a child that had to be given up for adoption. And that probably motivated me more than anything, having been adopted myself, that I wanted to have children and not give them up. And so that started the long trail.
And what a mountain that was to climb. Even your partner sounded like, in the book, doubted that you guys would be able to do it. And he was like, okay. But you did it. But what a journey it was. And talk about 2 different circumstances, completely different circumstances on how you got your boys.
Yes.
Was one more challenging, the integration of that son into your family life? Was one more challenging than the other?
No.
No?
No, the challenge certainly came with the international adoption. I went to India. I found an orphanage that would work with me, and then they decided to, they assigned a child to me 3 months later and called me and said, we have a little boy for you. We're waiting for Nicholas's paperwork to be approved by the Canadian government. And Colwyn's mother arrived at our place. We got a call one Friday afternoon from the Children's Wish Foundation in conjunction with People with AIDS saying, do you have a room available this weekend? And we said, well, we just had a cancellation. And they said, well, we have a mother at the airport with her young son who she is trying to have one last holiday with, but because she has AIDS, the Americans won't let her fly over American airspace. This was 1998. So we said, send her up. She's sitting at the dining room table, and there were probably 25 people there who had been around before, guests saying, when are you going back to India to bring Nicholas home? And she said, oh, you're adopting. And I said, yes. And she said, aren't you worried about leprosy or AIDS in India? And I said, no. And the next morning she said, I can't die with peace until I have found a new family for my son. Would you and Michael adopt Colwyn?
And there he is there, probably a little older at the age you adopted him. Colwyn, what do you make of your dads?
What do I make of them? They're family. I love them. They're an inspiration, of course. I'm very proud of them.
At what point did you understand what they went through to have a family?
I'm not sure if there was ever really a point other than my separate understanding of it as an adult, but I always kind of knew growing up. We were always told, we were always very much in the circle about what was going on and how people might perceive things, and you know, all the different qualities of it I sort of knew and came to terms with a long time ago.
And we're to wrap this up on World Adoption Day. What message do you want to get across?
Well, I'd like to get out that there are 30,000 children in Canada up for adoption today. And people need to look at the adoption option as a viable alternative to adding to their family or having a family. And it's open to anyone, single, straight, gay, older, younger, as long as you have the love in your heart to share with a child.
David Coleman, thank you so much for coming in today. The book is Rebel Dad, available now. Thank you.
Thank you.